What's going on, everybody? I'm Joshua.
And I'm Isaiah.
And we would like to thank you for listening to the Reasonably Prepared podcast,
A preparedness resource for the complete beginner.
Look, we are here to help you on your preparedness journey
Without the paranoia, fear, and doomsday often associated with preparedness.
If you find our podcast helpful, please subscribe and leave a comment letting us know. But now, on with the show.
Welcome back.
Welcome back again. Welcome back. So, welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, here we go.
Every time I think about it now, I'm just laughing. We went to record this podcast, and we realized that we pressed play on the camera without pressing play on the recording device. So we had like a long conversation.
What are your thoughts on maybe putting it in black and white and having some piano behind it and just do a silent movie?
We could, people have to read our lips.
We could do a Mystery Science Theater 3000 to it, you know?
I don't know what we're going to do with like 40 minutes worth of audio-less footage at this point. so embarrassed because I looked down at the recorder and I was like, hey, how come this isn't doing anything? Oh, no.
Yeah.
And we had the kind of conversation that actually changed the world.
Right. You know, it was like a spark in a bottle, you know?
Right? All right. So welcome back to Reasonably Prepared. As always, I'm Joshua. Who are you to the right of me?
Isaiah.
And who are you to the left of me?
My name is Brett. Thanks for having me.
What's going on, Brett? What is going on, Isaiah?
Hey, I'm doing great.
Hey, you know what? I think we're all doing pretty good. We had rock solid conversation that all needs to be re-recorded, and we need to repeat everything we just talked about, which I know the listener doesn't really care.
Well, I mean, I shorthanded everything with pencil and paper, so I think we're in good hands.
Right. One of the benefits to what this episode is, this episode has no real structure notes. We know how difficult and challenging it is when you're brand new to prepping, right? Brand new to prepping, and you're out there reading articles and reading books and searching YouTube and doing all of the...
So overwhelming.
Just super overwhelming.
Right.
So Brett is just starting in his preparedness journey and had lots of questions, or at least wanted to have conversation, didn't even know what questions to ask. And so I'm like, well, bro, why don't you just come on the podcast and we'll start talking about your preps, what you're thinking, what you're going through, where to start, where to begin, and to give a very basic starting point, right? Because you and I, Isaiah and I both know that, and Brett, through talking with him, there are lots of prepper gurus.
Right, there's a lot,
and I like them a lot. I watch them, and there are a lot of times they believe they're dumbing it down, quote unquote, or they're giving it in simple terms, but they make some subconscious assumptions that the rest of us already know what, say, EDC means, or when we say just go get a ferro rod and start a fire, or whatever it is. That other people are like, well, what the heck is
what's a ferro rod?
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I watched the show Alone, so that's where I learned about
Oh, nice. What a great show.
That is a great show. Even my wife likes it.
It is a spectacular. Okay, of all of the survival shows, there are only two that I
We were
enjoy.
just talking about this last weekend, Joshua.
Just because we were watching Alone together.
Yes, we were.
There are only
Season
two
7
that I endorse. One is Survivor Man,
What a great show.
and the other one is Alone. Yeah, the other one is Alone.
It's the real deal.
It's so legit. There are some things that we talked about that I still don't like about the idea. No, not about the idea, but here's something.
The structure of the show.
Yeah, the structure of the show. I think it's a spectacular show. It doesn't get any more raw and authentic than
It's like
that.
they say it's a survivalist Super Bowl or the Olympics
right?
for
But
survivalists.
But what I don't like about it, the one thing everyone go watch Alone. If you want to go down the survivalist bushcrafting path, go watch Alone, and it'll at least get you familiar with what's what. But here's what I don't like about it. I've been in scenarios where I was in the woods and stuck in the woods, right? What they do is they drop them off, and they can't move. They're only allowed within this I think it's
footprint.
This one footprint, 5 mile radius or whatever it is, 5 mile. And in reality, in for the rest of us, if I'm finding that the resources are really terrible in right where I am, I'm moving. Right, I've had to do it
100%,
and that happens in the show, but they can't move right.
Right, but they can't move. They can only move a certain distance, which is usually still within the spectrum of what they can see.
What is it, like 10 miles? Or
I think it's 5 square miles.
At the most 5 miles.
Yeah, and which actually, when you're trying to survive, isn't I mean, you can find paradise in 5 square miles, and you can find the worst
Right.
resources within 5 square miles. And in areas, let's say doomsday scenario where you're in a plane crash or you're stuck in the woods or something happens, you do have the availability to try and hike out. Now, some people might try to hike out and get themselves in a worse scenario, but if you're surviving somewhere and you've realized the resources are low, most of us are going to pick up and go to a more resource-rich area. But barring that,
Great show.
spectacular show.
So good.
They tried to even it out with that by, what do they do? Pick cards or something before the show starts. You get this, they get that.
Yeah,
Right.
and the areas they pick on paper have all the same things. There's water resource, and then there's, on paper they kind of are very similar. But that doesn't always necessarily mean, I mean, you might be at the base of a peninsula where at the other side of the peninsula all the fish are, right? So
Right.
It does make it challenging in that way. But so what we want to talk about today is something Isaiah and I always wanted to talk about, and that is where to begin, where to start, what do we do? There's so much information out there, and we were just talking a little bit ago about the idea of there's kind of 2 prepper worlds or avenues to walk down. One is the emergency preparedness, and then
Right.
the other one is the survivalist kind of doomsday preparedness. And they're both valuable, and they should overlap a little bit, where real world scenarios of storms and flood and power outages should also coincide with having an understanding of if you're forced to live in the woods, because what if your car breaks down on a journey, or you're in a plane crash, which has happened to people, and you're forced to survive in the woods and go hike out and try to find help or get saved. Your ability to do that is there. Or into the extreme areas of the dollar collapses and the government's collapse, which,
I think it's going to happen one day, just a matter of when. That's
Right.
my tinfoil hat opinion.
Nice.
Okay, it is definitely
Joshua
possible.
told me to take my tinfoil hat before we got on here. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Mine never comes off. I'm sorry.
Mine never goes off. It is possible because we've seen it happen throughout history, and we've seen it happen even in recent history. So,
Right.
it is. It's not that it isn't possible. It's just, I mean, yes, we do live in Western culture, and Western culture, I would say, is a little bit stronger, but it's all, it's still a delicate system.
It's all relative.
And so we wanted to bring Brett on here because he started asking us questions. We're like, hey, bro, why don't we just start having a conversation? Because he was just saying, you were just saying, you don't even know what questions to ask.
Right.
And where we start in the conversation is we do start the conversation with the emergency preparedness side of things, specifically threats that are pertinent and actual in your area, where you live. We live in Waco, Texas, Central Texas, where we are subject to tornadoes, possible hurricane if it makes it past where you live.
Right. Yes. Our main concern is hurricanes.
Right.
So
we lived in Northern California for a long time, where fire is a very, very real, imminent, all the time, every day, every minute concern.
multiple fires.
Yeah, everyday concern. So you do want to look at. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to start people out with what is the most acute, real, actionable emergency that you have in your area. Because I tell people this is a quote that I stumbled over last time, but is you can't prepare for everything. Right? You just can't do it. We can't prepare for every single scenario, but we can prepare for anything. Okay? And by that, I mean if you cover basic bases. Beyond those basic bases, you then decide your own level of involvement in the prepper world, how far you want to go with it. Okay, how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. If you want to go to, sometimes we call like extreme prepper doomsday scenario people, or just emergency preparedness for the area and form a community team, you get to decide that. But if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Or even just what the human body needs. That's where I begin. Always begin there.
I think that's smart.
First thing you need is air. Second thing you need is water. Then you need food. Then you need to be taken care of and comforts, basically in shelter. Those are your 4 basic.
Now, earlier when we weren't recording the audio, I want to add this. Where does protection, where does arms fit into that?
I'm putting that in the 4th category of protection, you mean firearms and protecting your family. So you need to be physically safe and secure is number 4. That means shelter, from the weather, from the elements, and being able to protect yourself. I kind of put in the same thing. I know there's a tier up from that as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but in the basics, Now, any of these, if you feel your needs are met with water and medical or water and food, then by all means, just jump straight to firearms. So we get this a lot. I get this all the time. When asking, man, where do I begin? I just don't know where to start. Should I go buy a bunch of guns, and should I be buying property right now? And
so let me tell you where I tried to begin. My first thought, total ignorance, never prepared for anything, my first thought was land. Let me get some remote land that I could run away to.
Right. And do you have...
That was my first... I didn't do that. I didn't make that step, thankfully. Well, I don't know.
Because we've talked about that before.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Financially, I didn't pull it off, but that's not the first step, right?
It's not. Well, consider. All right, awesome. You live in a suburban house right now, which is like anybody else would, or in a city, or we all do, right? And we're like, well, I'm going to go buy a chunk of land. Okay, awesome. What are you going to do when you get there?
No idea.
Yeah.
I got some seeds.
How are you going to get there?
The seeds are going to sprout overnight and give me food, right?
How are you going to get there?
Drive.
You're gonna drive, and if you can't go get gas,
well, I'm pretty stuck then.
Yeah, so cause you don't even have any gas to get there, right? How much water and food do you have for the trip?
Well, if I did that as my first step, I had nothing.
Okay, and if you get to the property, how much water and food do you have to sustain any amount of time there?
I was hoping to buy some land that either had a creek through it or had a well, but
awesome. Have you ever drawn water from a creek on a regular basis and purified it or boiled it before?
Never in my life.
So, and I don't say this to burst the bubble, but there are better ways to start the process and to start the journey, for sure.
It's because it's starting from a place of pure ignorance. Like, don't even know the questions asked. Don't know the thoughts to think like, oh, I got, if things go really crazy, I don't want to be in the city. That's where I started from. I want to get out.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. Okay, so...
But then I'm just sitting there with a piece of dirt and no food, no water, nothing.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you. You're actually worse. You're worse off, right? Because at least...
And no community.
Let's, for the sake of discussion right now, we're going to bar complete economic and civil collapse. Right. Although the last 18 months has proved that that's not... that's
far off.
That's happened in a couple local areas. We've had civil unrest. The election was nonsense. COVID has been a... clustered what as far as whatever anybody believes about it. Obviously we're on a similar side. They can't, but regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, it still was handled bizarrely and no one really knew what to do about it, right? And so barring civil collapse, raw situations, shit hits the fan situations, barring that, and starting with, okay, what if my power goes out? The same principles apply to what if my power goes out to if the power's out for a long time. There's still a starting point. And the starting point is the same for both of those. But the if my power goes out or if there's a storm is a way more practical, easier way to wrap your brain around and start. Okay? So we just don't talk air, water, food, and then shelter and comfort and physical, right? And so all of us, generally speaking, unless we're in a war-torn area, have clean air.
Right.
It's not something any of us really worry about at all, ever.
Right.
Really, ever.
I mean, there's some instances that, like the Saharan dust storms that seem to come every year now, where it's a little bit tougher, but still, I mean, it's...
As long as you're in your home.
Right. And
fire in Northern California or in the Northwest, all through there sucks. But if you're in your home, but generally... 99.9% of the time, we have clean air to breathe,
and it's something you can't really do much about anyway, right?
There are some
air
things,
you have is the air you have.
The air you have. I mean, unless we're talking about full face, positive displacement respirators, unless we're talking about isolating the entire inside of your house because of chemical warfare, which we're not even talking about that yet.
Agent Orange,
any of that, yeah. Because once again, none of us are there, but we have tangible, real things that we can prepare for now to get our feet wet and to get the ball rolling. So the next thing is going to be water.
So I've taken some steps there.
That's what I want to know. I want to know what you've taken, what your water situation looks like, because you go 3 minutes without air, but we just discussed that. You go 3 days without water, but dehydration, depending on the scenario, can actually set in within hours.
Right.
Okay.
And then you can't think clearly. Even before you're dead, you lose your brain.
Right. Depending on your physical makeup, 3 weeks without food. Okay, and then of course the elements can kill you: shelter, protection, water, weather,
Bears.
Bears, exactly. Which very real when I took you hunting.
Oh yeah,
right. And so let's start there. We're gonna start with what we always start with. What is your water situation?
Yeah. So thankfully, I told this story earlier, but I lived overseas for 5.5 years, and we had this situation where we lost electricity, we lost water, all at the same time. And I learned very, very quickly that going without electricity wasn't a problem for us. We still got the daylight, we got candles. It wasn't a problem. We can't charge our cell phone. Who cares? We're living just fine. But without water, things got hairy really, really, really fast. I'm talking like 12 hours, and it was not good. 24 hours, it was really not good.
Of no water.
Of no water. Really, really bad. Like, you can't do without water.
Can't do without water. And most of us in our daily lives consume more water than we ever even understand that we consume.
Do you want a graphic detail of why no water is a bad thing?
I'd love it. Yeah, because it's a reality.
So when you have no water, you can't flush your toilets. And when you don't have water for a couple days, you're going on top in the toilet on top of your spouse or your kids, and it's not good. It's not good. You can't flush your toilets. Mm-hmm. You can't wash your body.
Wash your clothes.
Can't wash your clothes. Can't wash your dishes. You can't
make soup.
Can't make soup. You can't drink from the
Literally.
tap. But then even worse than that, what happens when everybody else doesn't have water at the same time as you?
Exactly.
They all go to the store and buy whatever is there. And the water is gone in the first day.
That's huge. So,
and then what? And then you're just totally screwed.
You're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. In elevated, stressful situations, water is one of the first things if not the first thing to leave the shelf. We know this in hurricane, tornado. You know this from having lived overseas and dealt with that. Tell the story again. Tell the story, which you already did on your prepper, like the episode we did with you on your personal journey. But when we were in that holiday and the realization just how fast water leaves the shelf.
Yeah, so we're standing there in the store, and Joshua asked me a question. Well, what happens if there's no water? I said, well, I just go to the store and buy some water. Gosh, that's what I used to do. Is just
always done.
Yeah, just go to the store, buy some water, and I'm good. But Joshua then asked me this question that kind of changed my outlook on everything. It was just, say, we're without water, and how much water is on this shelf, and just the people that are in this store right now, how much water would be left in, say, an hour?
Yeah, I think it was like one of those, let's see who's in iShot, count them up.
Yeah.
And if they each bought, if they each bought 5 gallons, how much water would be left on the shelf? So we counted it.
Right. And so quickly found out there would be little to probably none left, and so that really got me thinking that, wow, this could be a bad situation.
And for a lot, so
really quickly.
Here's something else in line with, it's not just water, but it's a bigger picture that a lot of newbies will say, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but people who are new to the game or just realizing, well, I don't, the philosophy we talk about is to be less dependent on the system and be a bit more independent, because the system, as we're finding out, although awesome when it works well and when everything's basically going fine, is great, is also pretty easily disruptible. We have what's called a just-in-time supply chain. So we go back to the water scenario of it being in the store. I now said, all right, so now all the people that we can see have just cleaned the water off. He's like, well, yeah, they got water in the back. Yeah. They'll just restock the shelf.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Sounds good. They don't have any more back there than another round, basically, because they're basically keeping averaging out to 3 days worth of supply chain.
Which blew my mind because, I really didn't think about that. You don't think about the behind the scenes kind of thing of a grocery store. It's just, you go to their grocery store and it's always there.
It's always there.
You think it's an unlimited supply in the back, right?
No, they get that every couple of days as a and they've got algorithms and computer programs that help them ebb and flow what stays on the shelf and what sells slower and faster. But on an average, it's about 3 days worth of anything in the store. And if everybody goes there all at once to buy it, it's gone in an hour or two.
Yeah, because back to that example of buying if every person bought 5 gallons, but in that scenario, people are not going to buy 5 gallons, right?
No.
They're going to freak
cart
out and
full.
buy all the toilet paper like they did and buy all the water that they
Yeah, and then the store's having to, limit the resource that you're allowed to purchase. And then in reality, you're only buying 2 gallons, right?
Yeah, if they even can get on top of it that quickly.
Yeah, and 2 gallons is not a lot of water.
No.
It's not a lot of water at all. So tell me then, what are you doing what have you done so far for water so that we can kind of help organize and restructure for you maybe a first step? What so far do you have, knowing in your mind, knowing in your soul, like water is devastatingly important?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Well, just to go back to that, I just want to say I learned from that experience overseas that water is number one, and I will never, ever forget that. And so I really don't worry about electricity too much. It's kind of lower down the pole, but water, number one. What I have now, kind of my thinking was, well, my first thought went to water storage, but then I'm looking at the water storage. I'm talking to a buddy who lives overseas also, and he has like 500-gallon tanks on his farm. I don't have a farm. I have a house in the suburbs. I have a backyard that's not even fenced in. And we don't have an HOA, but most people have HOAs. It would be a huge eyesore if I put $1,000, 500-gallon, tank in the back. That's not going to work. So my next thought after that was, well, I live in an area where there's a lot of lakes, rivers, creeks, and that's kind of unlimited. So if I can get some type of filtration system where I can take it from those natural sources, I've almost got like the best of both worlds, where I've got clean water to drink, plus I've got an unlimited source. And so what I did was I bought different filters that work from natural sources, and I also bought different storage containers. So I bought these, I always say Life Straws because that's the most well-known one.
There's Sawyer and Life Straw, the 2 popular ones, but you said there's a third that you purchased?
Yeah. I want to say mine, I got it on Amazon. It was called Member Solutions or some Membranes. I don't know. But it's 4 straws where you put it in the water and you can just drink it, suck really hard, and it filters it through. So I got those. Those could fit like in backpacks for all my family members. Mm-hmm. I also got this hand pump. I think what was the name of it? Survivor Filter Pro or something like that. And it was like $50 or $60. Wasn't too bad. And and I have a reverse osmosis in my house. I like to drink clean water. I don't like the chemicalized city water. And so this thing is basically like a mini RO system, reverse osmosis system with 3 filters. And you can pump like a gallon out into whatever storage container you have, filtered water from any stream or whatever it is that you're filtering from. So I got that, and I got some extra filters for it too. That'll last me several thousand gallons. And then I also bought a Berkey. So like those
are awesome.
My thought was, if we're living in the woods for an extended period of time, the Berkey, I can just pour the water in from the river or the lake or whatever.
You put swamp water in a Berkey and it'll give you clean drinking water.
Yeah, and so that was my thought. That's a long-term survival. So I've got that. And then I've got a 5-gallon collapsible water storage container. It's plastic. I got that on Amazon too. And that could fit in a backpack, super light, and then you just pull it open and you can pour 5 gallons in it, carry it around. Mm-hmm. I also got a heavy duty Coleman, kind of like a gas can, thick plastic, 5-gallon water storage
like a jerry
container.
can style?
I don't know what a jerry can is.
Okay. See, that's what I'm saying. A lot of these preppers and YouTube channels will say, "Oh yeah, just you get yourself a jerry can," and then I got it. I don't know. So they're a specific style. They're like those rectangle styles that go on, like you see them on the backs of Jeeps, and
probably something like that. It's it's like a rectangular shape with a big handle at the top.
Yeah. That's jerry can. But
so I got that. And then I also got 2 5-gallon of like at the office water tank gallon jugs. And my thought was, well, that would kind of be my storage. After I filter it, I can fill up those 2 5-gallon things, and we'll store the clean water in there. And like the Coleman 5-gallon, that can just be like the raw, dirty water. And so that's what I've got now.
Non-potable water, right? Is what you're thinking.
Exactly. So that's what I've got right now.
So right now you've got water filtration and means to store some water somehow.
That's right.
So my question is, how you get into your water? How far away is your water?
I have no idea.
How are you driving or hiking?
I'm I'm
Is
thinking
there-
I'm
is-
driving.
Is there gas in your car or not? Because we've been out of power and you can't go fill up your car.
I'm thinking I'm driving. That's, I guess.
And so you're leaving your wife, your family several times a day to go fill up water in these and then bring them back to the house.
Yeah, I got my big storage containers in the back of my car. I'm going there. I'm filling them up and I'm bringing them back.
But we can't drive on the roads because a tornado just ripped through and we're kind of isolated and being asked to stay in our homes, or a tornado came through or there was flooding.
Well, if there's flooding, maybe I can use my filters in that flooded water.
Ooh, possibly. You're Berkey,
Yeah,
you could.
yeah.
You're Berkey, you could. The point I'm getting at is, what water do you have to get to your destination and collect water?
I got nothing.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, if you have means of storing water, means of filtering it, but you don't have any water to drink now, if the power goes out, because if the power goes out, the municipalities aren't cleaning your water for you. And a lot of times they'll have a boil policy, but they won't even be able to get it out to you in time, and you could be drinking contaminated water. Or a water main will burst and you have no water pressure and you can't get it. In the interim, how much physical water do you have stored at your house?
I got nothing. So
That means you don't have water.
my next level that I want to do is an expensive. It's an expensive step, but I want
Right.
to do. I want to get a 300-gallon vertical storage tank in my garage, but I don't have that now. So my answer is I got nothing.
You don't have any water. So consider, so those things are good things. And once again, when you go look at prepper stuff and you're researching and you're reading the books, those are cool things. The gadgets are cool. They're sexy. They make you feel like you're doing something. They make you feel like you're having fun doing something. But then the power actually goes out, the water stops running, and you can't actually walk your family the 6 miles to the pond you're thinking of because you have a baby and a small child, and your wife doesn't want to hike all the way out to, the 1 mile. Could
Yeah,
even be
just
1
1
mile. In inclement weather. You can't leave the house because a storm is raging.
I'm very thirsty.
Right, you're very thirsty. So you did some cool things, but you still don't have any water.
I don't have any water.
No, so here's what you do.
I never thought about that.
It's literally this simple. You go to HEB, which, how awesome is HEB?
HEB's the best.
How awesome is HEB?
I like natural grocers.
No, HEB is so much better than natural grocer. Sorry. Where do you get, there is no natural grocer here. You got to go all the way to Temple.
Temple. Yeah, but I used to live in San Antonio where we had it.
Ugh, yeah, no, I'm a big HEB. They're not a sponsor. I'm just an HEB fan.
But you know why I don't like
But-
HEB?
No, how could you not
Because
like
I
HEB?
I don't want to say I don't like it, but they've fallen out of my graces a little bit. Because when I was 16 years old, my first job was at HEB. You know what HEB was like back then? We had
Little HEB pantry foods, remember those?
Oh man,
we had people working the parking lot bringing carts in. That was a whole position.
Right, for sure.
Cart guy. We had every lane had its own bagger. And you had carry out, so you had baggers, you had outside cart people.
Oh, you're saying the services dwindled. Is that where you're going with
You
this?
got none of those, dude.
Yeah.
This-
You got to bag your own groceries. You got to take your own groceries out. You got to put your own cart up. I mean, you can. Even the cashiers are limited, where you scan your own groceries.
I don't like those things. Anyway,
So,
okay.
look.
Anyway, I'm still a big fan of HEB because their products are so awesome. But go to any grocery store and buy water, just gallons of water. No, I want you to steer clear of the gallon jugs, like the milk jugs, the gallon milk jug style, because those plastics are terrible. They're
Leachy.
junk. They degrade easy. They puncture easy. They don't store well, and they don't stack well. I don't like them.
Yeah.
Get the rectangular clear ones with the band handle on top. Get those, and what you want to do is this is the bare minimum that we recommend, and the single place to start. 2 gallons per person per day for 72 hours. Start there. Put them under your bed. Put them in the back of a closet.
So I got 4 of us. I got a wife.
Now you've got babies, so they're going to require less water.
But still, let's be safe,
Right.
right? 2 gallons for 4 people. That's 8 gallons per day. 3 days, 24 gallons is what I need. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly
Okay.
right. Just to start. And then what you have is an immediate buffer zone, so that if, once again, some storm knocked the power lines down and you can't get out to HEB, or you don't even want to because you don't want to deal with the mob of people. So, because there's a couple of different things that happen when you prepare yourself. A lot of people have the stereotype that preppers are all doomsday, paranoid, schizophrenic, terrible members of the society, and we're a fringe people, right? The reality is, when stuff was going wrong for the last 18 months, or when we had fires in California, or when hurricane hit. Tell them what you were worried about when the hurricane hit. This last one.
Yeah. So, me and my wife, we were like, we're pretty prepared here, but we're kind of running low on beer. So
Seriously.
let's drive over to our local store here and let's go get some beer.
Right. When you think ahead and prepare yourself in any way, shape, or form, you're actually buying yourself some peace. You're not contributing to chaos, and you can actually help bring order from chaos. You're in a better position to serve, or bare minimum, not be a draw during chaotic times or stress, right? So 72 hours is the place we start. Two gallons per person per day. Then that gives you a buffer zone of okay, we need to take a trip and go get some water.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to be good. Oh, the power's back on. It's the right place to start. And then from there, after that, now all these other gadgets that you have, keep them. They're not bad.
For sure.
The Berkey system is just good in general.
I have life straws. All that.
Yeah, and I have the Sawyer systems. What I like about the Sawyer systems is they come with bags.
Mm-hmm.
So you can collect water and carry it as
Right.
well. And you want some way to carry water also. Consider those 5-gallon buckets that you have, or 5-gallon bags. That's 40 pounds of water each.
Yeah.
You want some smaller, more manageable canteens and things like that to put in your pack, and little water pouches that you can get from point A to point B if you're forced to hike somewhere. But generally speaking, if we're in a storm, we lose power for 72 hours, for a week, or whatever it is, we're in our home. So when it comes to water, that's where I would start, is today, or what we do, what Leah does, and I think you guys do the individual
we
small
do
bottles as well.
the
The
water
pallets of
bottles.
water, those
Yeah.
are good also to have. You want to have some of those.
The pallets of water. What do you mean?
Not the pallets, the flats. Those 24 bottles of water.
Oh, okay.
Because they're like $2.99.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So
I go to the big box stores, the club stores. And
Yeah.
I can get 40 some odd bottles for like $3.
There you go.
And those are good to have too, because then you've got individual water
Right,
storage
right,
as
right.
well. And then
Fits
the
in a
gallons.
backpack.
Mhm.
But also we use them in our daily lives as well. So I mean we just rotate through all that.
Yeah,
So
Leah,
we just
my
keep a
wife,
lot
she
of them.
keeps a case in her van.
Isaiah, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So, what in that type of situation, what is your beer that you want on that day?
Oh man, IPA all the way. So anything IPA, it's usually going to be Hopadillo.
Hopadillo, I've had that.
Gross.
I like Hopadillo, actually.
Yeah, Hopadillo is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm the odd man out here. I hate IPAs.
It's an Austin beer, is that right?
It's it's a Texas beer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's made by Carbach.
Cool.
That's Houston. Carbach's Houston,
Okay.
right? Because they're the ones with the big H on the can for Houston Astros.
Yeah, they have their Crawford Bach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they were Houston.
By the way, so there's
Yeah.
another level I've learned of preparedness where once you got all your bases squared away, then you can kind of look towards investment and barter opportunities, such as beer and liquor,
Beer,
right?
liquor,
Ammo.
Ammo.
Yeah, but see, we're not even there yet if you're just starting out. So that's what I'm saying. A lot
But
of
his
these.
isn't for investment. His is for survival.
That's
His was
survival.
on some beer
That's right.
because they were taken care of.
So you got to know your personal needs. If you need beer to survive, you got to have that.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's true. That's true. Hey, you should have had it stored. Which actually, at your house last week, you do have beer stored on your shelf there.
I do.
Yeah, he actually
Good.
does have a supply stored on the shelf next to his water, just for having. Which
I
is-
learned my lesson.
Yeah, which is awesome. So that's where we start. We start with water. Okay. Then the next thing we jump to is food, because you have to eat, right? Most of us have blankets and pillows in the house, so if it's too cold or too warm, we're good there. Now, it does suck being without power, without AC in Houston. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Very humid.
That's why you own firearms, so you can shoot yourself to feel better. To feel better.
If the beer ran out.
If the
Yeah.
beer ran out. If the beer ran
Right.
out.
After the beer and
So
gin.
so once again, that's why we break it
Now,
down the way we
with
break it down.
food, you also have to keep an account. A lot of people don't think about this when you're starting out. You need to find food that you're actually going to eat. A lot of people say, oh man, I'm just going to pick any food that's going to last years and years and years. But I mean, I found 18 cans of asparagus,
Gross.
but
Canned
man,
asparagus.
I hate canned asparagus. Am I going to eat it?
Yeah, because
Maybe, but I don't want to.
some people say, well, you'll in a survival situation, you just be happy to eat whatever you can get your hands on. Possibly, but
Yeah, technically, yes.
It's true on the last day.
yeah, well, and if we're in like right now, I can go to the grocery store and buy right now all the food I want. I might as well just buy food I want.
Right.
Right. That's a
Right.
good point.
So you've got kind of a 3-tiered system. So that's my next question is, so we've just dealt with water. You're going to go buy yourself enough gallons of water to cover for 72 hours. And then you've got some of those other ones. And then you can start working on bigger, larger, long-term water storage. Like we had
Reserves,
we had a 2,500 gallon rainwater harvest system up where we lived on our property before. And another thing to discuss here, whether it's water, food, medical, whatever it is, the disruption from normal life is so hard on your psyche, you don't realize it.
Yeah.
So, like, even though we had 2,500 gallons of water stored up, when we ran out of water because California was in a drought and our well ran dry, even though we had that, by, like, there's something magical about the day 3 when it comes to this stuff. By, like, the third day, my wife was, we were, like, from having to brush our teeth out of small containers to flushing the toilets by going outside in ridiculously hot weather, drawing water to flush the toilets, to washing dishes from small little spigot off stored water. Those stressors add up to an ultimate wall. You reach a mental wall. And we weren't doing laundry, and by the third day of no water, she's like, we need to do laundry. And I said, well, then we're going to have to do laundry in the bathtub. And she was like, I can't do laundry. I refuse to do laundry in a bathtub. Refuse to do it. I can't do that. It's not possible. And she hit like a mental breaking point. Now, today she would be able to do that, but at that time, the way it added up, even though we had some provisions, there were still mental hurdles to overcome. And so you're trying to minimize that. Right. So that's why we talk about make sure you've got drinking water stored up. Make sure you've got, you have it available to you so you don't have to go get it if you don't have to go get it.
Right. So this is what I've taken from what you guys have told me.
Sure.
From my current situation as it is today. One, I've got water storage containers, but I have no water storage. So if things go bad today, I got no water.
You have no water.
I'm in the same position where I got to buy from the store. So one, I need to fill some of those containers, right?
For sure, yeah.
And if I remember right, 2 gallons per person
Per day.
for 3 days.
For 3 days is the minimum starting point.
There's 4 in my family, so I need 8 gallons per day. That's 3 days. It's 24 gallons is what I need to do. I can do that.
That's easy to do. So that's what we do. My wife already, when we go to the store every week, so we go to the store every couple of weeks, every 2 months to a month, or every 2 weeks to a month. And when she does, she just grabs an extra few. They're 88 cents. They're literally 80 cents. There's so whenever we go to Costco or Sam's Club, she'll just get an extra case of, well, that's the food part, right? But she'll just grab some extra water and we put it in our basement.
Yep.
Yeah. Or put it under a bed.
So my action steps, I need 24 gallons of water.
Right.
And then you hinted at this. You didn't say it specifically, but I need to find out where my closest water source is.
And can you get there?
Because that's kind of what I'm all banking on. Right now, I don't know where it is, to be honest with you.
And can you hike there and back?
Yeah.
Carrying 80 pounds worth.
So what is it like driving there if I have gas? And then what is it like if I have to walk there?
Right.
So I need to think. So those are my 2 main action steps. And then I think third is kind of like a totally different one, but like where I take things up a notch is when I get that 300-gallon vertical storage tank.
Awesome. I would do that, yes. But I would first do what
First,
you have.
I need water.
Get some water. Have some water stored. Have some non-potable water stored for cleaning, stuff, not for drinking. No, you can boil it. You've got filtration. And then from there, start storing more.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
It's the same thing with food. Food's the exact same way. We've got basic 3-tiered system. You've got your short term, which is all the stuff in your fridge that's perishable. You got your mid-term, which are non-perishable foods like canned foods, boxed macaroni and cheese. Stuff maybe in your freezer might be in between those. If you have power, then you've got a freezer. Will last longer, I'm saying, than what's in your fridge. And then you've got your ultra long term, which are going to be like dehydrated foods, things of that nature. MREs, buckets of rice stored away, beans stored away, dried goods. But man, just start with some basic. Start with the mid section and just keep extra cans of green beans, corned beef hash, Spam if you'll eat it. If not,
Canned chicken.
Canned chicken and canned ham.
Yeah.
Just tuna, canned chicken, and canned ham.
I've got canned peaches.
Right.
I like peaches, you know.
There you go.
And keep a basic staple, you know. And another thing to do when it comes to food that we are huge proponents of is learn how to cook from scratch. Have raw ingredients that you, for instance, Leah and I, we buy flour 50 pounds at a time because we bake with it so much. And we cook from scratch more than we cook from box. But he had a good idea, too. He's like, keep some Bisquick because Bisquick is so versatile.
Right.
Pancakes and biscuits and breads and casseroles and things of that nature. But learn how to cook from the raw ingredients, from the rawest form is super important. And then from there, have some good midterm storage. Then you can start dealing with long-term storage.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah, so the way we you know, I kind of started is, you know, buy extra of what you're already buying. You know, so if you're buying, say, 2 cans of corn, buy an extra one or buy an extra 2, you know, and just keep that in storage, you know, and that's how you get started, you know. That's how we started.
That's simple and easy. I love it.
It's so
easy.
simple.
Yeah. So you're not spending an absorbent amount of money at first. You know, it's just whatever you're buying now because you know you're going to eat what you're buying now.
Right.
So just go ahead and buy the 1 extra can or maybe 2, and you're good.
Right.
So let me tell you what I've got.
Do it.
And I was totally blind in this. I had a little bit of information on the water, but with the food, I just totally... So I wanted a lot, right? I wanted a big bag. I'm thinking, so I go to Sam's Club. And I think I bought a 50-pound bag of rice. I think I bought two 20-pound bags of beans and then some 8-pound bags of beans. So basically, I got big bags of beans and rice.
Right. And here's another question I have. Whenever anybody says that to me, which I think is great, I say this.
You need water.
How much water do you have? Because they
None.
all require water.
Right.
All of it.
All
So
of it requires water.
I got that, but I got no water.
Right. And do you have fire source?
So this is a huge hole in my game right now, and it's like the hole, isn't
Right.
it?
If you have no water, that's your the hole.
Yeah.
Right.
What? That sounded bad. That sounded rough. If you got the hole, the next plot hole in your story, we'll call it that. Yes, would be food, but you're about to rectify your acute water problem. We'll call it the acute water problem, the immediate.
I've got an action step. I can do it tomorrow, even
Right.
today if I get back soon enough.
For sure, and you're spending less than $20.
Yeah, and it's easy.
Yeah. So anyway, the next one is going to be
I've also got some canned foods. I've got like some boxes of cereal that we
Sure,
don't really
sure.
eat, but
Yeah.
you need milk for that. Milk is perishable, but
you don't need milk for cereal. You can eat it dry.
well, no, you're right. No, okay, that was it wasn't a dumb statement. I just like cereal. I love cereal, so we eat a lot of cereal. Yeah, as a snack, so and milk and cereal. But actually, 2 of my kids basically eat cereal almost without milk in it. Anyway, but you're right. Yeah, so food is going to be
So
the next thing.
how is the food that I have minus? Let's say it's tomorrow.
What do you
I've got
have?
my water storage.
What do you have?
I got the beans and I got the rice, and I got
What do you-
canned beans and canned rice.
Okay.
basically.
And are you and your wife ready to just consume only that?
Not ideally,
Right?
but we'll survive, right?
Right.
You'll survive for sure. I mean, you'll survive to some. But and then what more complex proteins do you have? Meats.
We do got some frozen meat.
Mhm.
We got a second fridge now, and electricity goes off. You lose those pretty quickly.
Right.
I
So
did,
you'll
I
eat
did
those
get a
first.
generator.
Okay, well
I
there
did
you
get
go.
a generator, so primarily for the fridges and stuff. So
Right, and that's like so. There are other fringe parts of the discussion. They're like, well, I could have a generator to do this. No, you're right; those are good
Right.
things, and I want you to have, and I want people to buy those and have those, and they're good. Like those are awesome resources to keep what you already do have. But there are some basic fundamentals that you want to like water, and yeah, you want to make sure that you've got 3 meals a day for 3 days, stored. Right, that's another place we start. 3 meals per day. For 3 full days. That's, I read an article a while ago called nine Meals to Chaos. 9 meals is 3, 6, 9. That means inside of 3 days. Typically, that's when things start to really break down when we talk about grocery stores and things of that nature. And so if you've got 3 days worth of food, you've got a great starting point. You've got, whether it be soup or canned meats and canned beans and canned macaroni and cheese or something that's easily to prepare and store.
You know, in my preps, I have a lot of rice and beans. You know, it's easy to store. In my situation in my garage, it fits on my shelf. You know, I've got several 5-gallon buckets worth of rice and beans, but realistically, I know my kids aren't going to eat just rice and beans. You know, so I made sure to get some stuff that I know they like. You know, that's in cans. That's so that in a stressful situation, they've got something they can kind of, you know, they're not stressed out about. So
that's a good point. Hey, I got a question. So
bring it.
You mentioned your rice and beans is in the garage, and that was after I bought it. Then I had that question: where do I store it? Do I store it in the garage, which would be the coldest place? It's easy, right? Out of the way. But I decided no, let's not store it in the garage because we've already had a moth issue in our pantry where we basically lost half of our food. And I don't know, I was just thinking hot Texas garage, let me not store it in there. So I stored it in kind of like the bottom level of our pantry, but it's totally full now and I want to get more food. So I don't know where to put the rest of the food, and I didn't know if the garage is okay or not.
Our garage is okay, depending on if it's
depends on how you're storing it.
Yeah, right. So I have these 5-gallon water jugs. There's these square water jugs, or 5-gallon buckets that have good clapping lids that can become pretty airtight and things can't get in and out of them. Like moisture is your biggest problem, right? And then maybe some insects. But if moisture can't get in, insects can't get in, right? Because it's so airtight. It's so tight. So you want it with us, humidity.
Right.
It will ruin food. It'll mold. It'll get wet. It'll ferment, things like that.
Right. The main concern with humidity is, you know, down in Houston, it's going to be mold.
Right, it's going to be mold. So you can get, I've got these 5-gallon water jugs. They're like the blue, but I also put rice or beans in those and then just put the top on and they're airtight. Or 5-gallon buckets with airtight snapping lids are a good place. And then they stack well, right? And yeah, you can put those in the garage.
So you open the plastic bag that they're in and then pour them in your...
Right. Or I think I've seen people just put... Now, another thing you can do is, I vacuum seal a lot of stuff. We own a vacuum sealer. I've found that vacuum sealer is good for all kinds of crazy things. So we just have it as part of our family, one of our family tools, and we vacuum seal a lot of stuff. You know, from freezed goods to paper, like sensitive documents, to cash that go in our emergency boxes, you know, and things like that. So another thing you can do is vacuum seal it, and they make these little, you know, those silicone tabs, and there's another way to store it, and you put that in a 5-gallon bucket. But if you're storing it in, you know, the 5-gallon containers, you'll want to check on them periodically, and that goes too for canned goods. They only have a 1 to 2 year shelf life, so you're going to want to cycle through them.
Right.
And they make these shelves. We'll put them in the link below. We've seen them. They're these little racks that, you know, when we all put our cans in the shelf, we just stack them. You know, you just put them in, stand them up. Well, they make them sideways so that they're like soda pop can things, and you can actually use the entire top to bottom. Right. Those are really cool.
Yeah, and so if you're buying extras of what you're already buying, you know you're going to be cycling through them.
And everybody can do that. There's really nothing you got to learn, or you can't get confused with that.
You can go online and buy the silicone, like oxygen tap packets on Amazon and put those in there with it to help keep moisture out. Is another way you can do it. Let me ask you.
So I take my 5-gallon Coleman water storage container, and I could pour all my rice bag, 5 gallons of rice in there. Can I put that oxygen tab directly in there?
Sure, right on top.
Okay.
Another thing I've done in the past as well is in those 5-gallon ones, you know, the square ones, and they've got a little thing is because it has a smaller port. In order to kill for very long-term storage, and this is for very long-term storage. We don't do this for medium, and by medium I mean I've got a 25-pound bag of rice right now that we pull from, and we keep one behind it, and we just cycle through that as our normal rice consumption, right? So at any given time, we've got almost 30 pounds of rice, right? And then once we break into the next one, we buy another 20-pound bag of rice. So we do it that way. Is another way.
Nothing's wasted.
Nothing's wasted. But for very long-term storage, I put the rice in the bucket, and I take a chunk of dry ice. You know, dry ice. So you buy at the
Yeah.
store dry ice.
Yeah.
And you put the dry ice in there, and then you put the lid on and tape it. That dry ice, the chemicals in there, I can't remember exact, will kill any bacteria and any buggies and stuff that are in there, and then it just ends up off, and you don't have a problem, and then you can store it for a very long time. For a
That's
very
cool.
long time. Like
I did not know that.
if you wanted to do that. We don't have as much ultra long-term food storage, given that at any given moment, if something were to happen, we've got about a month and a half to 2 months worth of regular, like I said, I've got a bag of rice behind the rice I'm using now. I've got 5 gallons of canola oil behind 2 gallons of canola oil behind the one I'm using now. I've got, I've got a 50-pound sack of flour behind the one we're in now. That goes, we open the second one, then we replenish what's behind it, right? So,
And that's called cycling?
yeah.
Or
So
rotating?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Cycling, rotating, you're keeping an extra amount on hand, and essentially what you're doing is just getting ahead of you're getting ahead of your already known usage, right?
I mean, it's useful also because, what if you lose your job?
Right.
You've not even an emergency situation like weather related, but what if you lose your job
Or
and
they
you're having a
downsize.
what if you're having a hard time finding a job? You still got food on hand.
Right.
But not only that, are food prices going down or going up?
Oh, everything's going up. It
So-
all will continue to rise.
So you're good either way.
Right. For sure.
And I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll join you guys right back in 1 minute.
Okay. Sounds pretty good. I'm down.
Don't make fun of me while I'm gone.
We already have. We already will. So what I'm really digging Isaiah about is like him bringing up questions that don't get addressed or thought of
Right.
on the advanced prepper
No,
in the
seriously.
advanced prepper community.
Yeah.
Now I do want to say, to be diplomatic, we watch lots of preparedness stuff. A lot of preparedness stuff, right?
Yeah.
And lots of different channels. In fact, I want to do a whole episode on people who I watch and I trust and who I influence me, and they're across the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
And they're all really, really good from far advanced, but I still, like you said, a lot of them just don't break it down into simple terms. So,
Yeah, we were talking about this just today, actually, before we started podcasting on, a lot of people will give instructions on how to do something, but only in 2 steps and leave a lot out,
A lot.
because they assume, that everybody knows how to fill in those gaps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even, yes, they assume how to fill in the gaps. And another thing is you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You don't really know which questions that you like. If you've never been in the vernacular, you've never been part of the community, you've never done anything, and you might have never heard the term EDC.
Right.
What's EDC? So somebody else might just rattle off EDC like everybody knows it, and not everybody knows it.
Right. Or even ICE.
Or ICE in
Yeah.
case of emergency,
Right.
ICE, right? We might say it, but I always want to explain to people because I can't assume that everybody knows what a ferrocium rod is or a ferro rod. I can't assume that.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
I can't assume everybody knows what he just said, what cycling is.
Right.
I can't, just do this. And it would drive me up the wall when I research like how to edit videos and edit because I'm so not computer savvy. When they start talking about things and I have no earthly idea even the terminology they're using, so I don't learn anything.
Right. I mean, you've got situations where people are preparing for, say, total collapse of the government, and they're prepping on ammo, weapons, armor,
buying property.
buying property. But then a hurricane comes through, and they're like, "Oh man,
What do I do?
exactly." So
I don't have any water, but I've got a bug out bag.
right, absolutely.
Well, I can't bug out because there's a tornado outside.
Yeah,
or a hurricane.
or the roads are torn up, or there's trees down across all major roads, and so yeah,
Wow. So good. So good. Well, you know what? Well, when he comes back in, we might need to make a part 2 of this because we're coming in on an hour now.
yeah,
Yeah, we need to get out to the property. So we might need to make a part 2 of this when he comes back in.
Yeah, totally.
We'll talk about that. But what we do want to talk about also right now, we're going to go. We'll keep having a little bit more conversation with him right now. We'll go a little longer for everybody because this is my podcast and our podcast, and we get to decide how long it goes. And if you want to listen, you get to keep on listening. And if not, there's
bonus
a pause button.
material.
Yeah, there's a yeah. Or there you go. But we might need to make a part 2 of this. But I do want to say that in line with a lot of things we're talking about is I asked, hey, so how are you going to start a fire?
Right.
I have gone through so many fire starters, like different style fire. And by fire starter, I mean not an ignition source, not a spark, but something that burns a flame consistently for a small period of time so you can build a fire.
Right. And it's like with everything. There's so many options.
Oh, my gosh. There's so many options.
So many options.
And
how do you know which one's the best? It's just...
I know which one's the best so far because I've used a ton of them.
Right.
Hey, the most important thing for a beginner to know is how to rub 2 wooden sticks together and make a fire, right? That's step 1.
If you don't know how to do that, then you can't survive anywhere.
Right.
You
Exactly.
can't. But what we're getting at here is I have found a fire starter that we put in case of emergency boxes. List in the link below. Just go down there if you want an emergency checklist.
They've really made it easy.
Right. This company is called Blackbeard Fire Starters. Now, I own right now many different styles of fire starters that I keep in my hunting pack, that I keep in my vehicle, that I keep even on my person.
You've done a video on one.
Did do a video on
A homemade one.
we did our homemade fire starters,
Absolutely.
and we're going to be doing a review on Blackbeard, which is why I like it. And I reached out to them, and they were really good to us, and they allowed us to have an affiliate link. But what I wanted, so the affiliate link gives you 10% off Blackbeard fire starters. Now, I've owned the little ceramic style and other putties, and I'm going to do a head-to-head shootout of all these. I probably own 10 different kinds of, fire building apparatus. This Blackbeard is awesome stuff. So I can't recommend it more. I'm putting it in most everything we have to help me build fires for when I'm hunting or camping, or if I just need to, or even when I'm cooking, because I smoke meat a lot and I get, I use the charcoal and build a fire for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's lightweight.
Super lightweight.
It doesn't take a lot of room.
It's waterproof.
It's waterproof.
And easy to use.
Absolutely easy to use.
And it's called Blackbeard Fire Starters. And if you click the link below and put in the coupon code PREPARED, you're going to get extra 10% off your order.
Why is it awesome? Why do I need it?
I just told you. Awesome.
So let me ask you a newbie question.
Yeah, do it.
Does it make a fire, or does it keep a fire going, or what?
When you've got...
Can I make a fire with it?
You can build a fire with it. It's part of the fire building process.
Okay.
You need some type of ignition source.
Okay.
And then...
Such as a lighter,
which I carry on my person at all times, a Bic lighter. All times. I have one in my truck. There's one in my backpack. There's one in my pocket. And I'm talking Bic lighters, not the cheapo ones. Not any lighters can be better than nothing, but the Bic lighters I find are the most dependable. Okay, so you need an ignition source, and from there you need a small flame, and the small flame you'll then build to a larger fire. Okay, so you need fuel for that. But in inclement weather or in different scenarios, you want to maximize your sparks, so you're not just creating a ton of sparks for no reason, and then you want something that's going to have a constant small fire source for an amount of time to then build upon. Okay, so this Blackbeard fire starter is awesome for that. Go to the link below and do that. But for you, an ignition source and consistent flame all in one is a less than 1 ounce Bic lighter. Bic says they're good for 4,000 lights. They're self-contained. They're super light. So everybody should have a Bic lighter on them at all times.
Just keep it in your pocket.
And I know this. We know that Bic lighters work the best, barring having like Zippos. But Zippos, are cumbersome because you've got to have flints and wicks, and and you have to refill them.
They're not for beginners.
No, they're not. And we smoked forever.
Right.
We were smokers for a long time. So we've gone through all the lighters. The Bic lighter is the most. It's just easy to use.
Hey, so in my situation, I got nothing in this camp.
Right.
What do I need? I need a Bic.
Always just
and I need a
go to the store and spend $1.
Blackbeard
fire starter.
I need a Bic. I need a Blackbeard fire starter.
You need to learn how to build a fire, don't you?
And I need knowledge.
Yeah.
Is that it? Or is there any other tool I need?
I mean, okay. Need is a subjective term. Okay, need is a subjective term. You can build a fire from 2 pieces of wood, right? But it's really difficult, and do you know how to do it? So there are other ways to ignite a fire starting source, which is one's called a ferrocium rod or ferro rod, and it creates really hot sparks, right?
Not for beginners.
Well, I mean,
medium-ish. intermediate?
I would say any beginner can pick up a ferro rod and learn how to use it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not as easy as a big lighter, but
Right. It's not
It's
as easy
similar.
and convenient as big lighter, but it's not all that dissimilar too. And it's something people should have part of the repertoire after they have a big lighter.
Gotcha.
Right. And then, I mean, you could have a torch on you if you wanted to, you know, I mean, depends on how big you want to go with it. But some precursory understanding of how to build a fire small, because you build fires from small flame up, right?
Okay.
From small ignition sources up. And so having a Bic lighter and having some consistent waterproof way to start a fire, because me and Caleb used to do survival things out on our property, and I'd say the most challenging part of it was trying to get fire going in the rain. It's it feels next to impossible.
I saw that from the show alone.
Oh God, it's demoralizing.
right.
Because
So the Blackbeard firebox,
fire starter.
fire starter, sorry, that would be hugely valuable if it's waterproof.
It is water. Apparently, it is. We're gonna do a full review on it, but yeah,
Test it out.
Yeah, and we'll have a video on that as well. But yes, I've used it, but I haven't tested its waterproofness yet. But I'm going to. Anyway, so go check that out. But as far as building a fire and all that, that's just part of kind of being outdoorsy. And I always recommend people become outdoorsy, even if they're not, to some degree, just so that you're out of your comfort zone. If you're used to sleeping in the same bed in the suburban America, and you don't take yourself out of your comfort zone, how will you ever know what it feels like to be out of your comfort zone?
Well, I mean, we go tent camping, and there's times that we go cabin camping, right? And I mean, one of the number one things the kids want to do is eat s'mores.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on.
Every time we go camping, whether it's a cabin or a tent, the kids are like, when are the s'mores coming out, right?
They're
and
the
so, I mean, you got to build a fire to be able to get some s'mores going. So, I mean.
Right, and here's something else. I keep a lighter in my pocket, a Bic lighter in my pocket, one in my truck, one in my backpack. There's 3 or 4 in cabinets in our kitchen, okay, because our kitchen runs off natural gas and propane. At any given moment, if we don't have power, I still have a stove.
So back to my scenario, I got the bags of beans and rice, but I don't have the water and I don't have the light. I need both of those, right? I need a fire to boil that water for the beans and the rice.
Sure.
And I need the water for the beans and the rice. So I got some holes in my game.
Yeah, so once again, sometimes we can rest on our laurels. We're like, well, I got rice now. Well, can you cook your rice? Well, yeah, I just start up the stove. Do you have an electric stove or you got a gas stove?
See, we don't even think those questions. We don't think about that. I got rice. How are you going to cook it? Never thought about that.
Right. So do you have a camp stove that runs off those little propane things?
I bought a little, I think it's called a firebox. Have you heard of that?
Okay. Yeah.
So I thought that was maybe a good idea because you can put, there's a bunch of woods by, everywhere, all around here. So I figured you could always find wood instead of running out of propane or whatever it is.
Yeah, there's some things that we always think that we'll always be able to find, or that we think we'll always be able to find. There's a lot of preppers out there who are like, well, I'm just going to hunt. Well, yeah. Good luck with that, because animals seem to have a sixth sense around things. And I've been hunting for 15 years, and I've got to say, I've eaten tag soup before.
Oh, yeah.
It's not always a done deal. You don't always get
What
an
is
animal.
tag soup?
Tag soup means you went out and spent a bunch of money on deer and animal tags, and you've got nothing to cook except for those tags.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Isn't that crazy how you got to buy the tags before you even? I don't think that's right.
That's how they manage the game, which Texas does a great job at managing game, by the way. But
Through money.
For money, for small amounts of money. But they do a great job at their management system, and then their money goes back into. So, for instance, the licenses here are really cheap, and they go to directly fund conservation and private property owners who allow people to hunt on their property. So it's kind of cool in that way. Whereas California is just nonsense trying to hunt in California. But sorry, Californians, you're going to be the butt of almost every joke because we lived there for a long time. And yeah, I'm sorry for feel sorry for Californians. But anyway, love Californians, but Californians politics can kiss my booty. Anyway. So yeah, I mean, those are things to think about, like to say, oh, I've got food, and then I'm going to ask you, well, awesome, how are you going to cook it? Are you able to? Have you ever cooked on open fire before?
Never.
So you might need to go buy, and there are pragmatic ways to fix that. Go to Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot and buy one of those awesome little square fire pits that go in your backyard. and learn how to build a fire and go through the motions of not getting it right, and then have just a family fire outing in your backyard during the fall, because there's nothing nicer than, and then you can do s'mores.
Yeah.
And then when you're doing that, the next time you do it, say, hey, let's cook some hot dogs out here with a stick, or you can go to Walmart and buy the long telescoping hot dog things, and then all of a sudden you're now in the beginning phases of training yourself how to cook on open flame. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Right?
Absolutely.
So we were just talking while you were out there using the restroom that we're going to probably have to make this a two-parter, because this is running a little long. Okay. So we covered water and holes in your water game. We covered some food and holes in your food game.
Mm-hmm.
While we're talking, we covered maybe building a fire and doing something.
I got holes in my fire game.
Got holes in some of your fire
And
game.
they're all kind of interrelated, aren't they?
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure they are. It's still, you're still going to start with water, start with food, because right now, as it is, generally speaking, your stove works, right? Generally speaking, you have water stored, and if not, it's only going to last for a few days, so you can eat canned food right out of the can.
Right.
You know, if you don't want to heat it up on something, you can eat canned soup right out of the can. So you
Right.
can do that for a few days. But then we start thinking longer term. But for the very beginner, don't think. And here's another thing. Here's something I'm going to say to you. I've said to you, I think. I always have. This is something I have to tell myself. Never compare your now to somebody else's journey, right? Never compare where you're at, your beginning, to somebody else's middle. Right? Because you're going to tie your head knots doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Worry about what you're doing and where you are. Not worry, but be okay with where you are in your journey and focus on that. Not worry, but focus on that. Stop comparing the fact that I don't, once again, when we lived out on property, I had 10 kilowatt solar system, full battery backup, 2,500 gallon rainwater system with irrigation, 50 chickens.
That sounds cool.
Right. But don't compare where you are now to that. It took us how many years to get there, and how much money and time? That was 10 years in the making, and then we sold that, right?
But check this out from my angle. So I've spent a considerable amount of money in all this preparedness stuff, and
it's still kind of useless.
It's still kind of
still
useless.
feel kinda-
I've been sleeping a lot better after having these things. But
They're
now
good now.
after this, I'm still at zero because I have no water. And all my food is dependent upon water, except for the couple of canned beans and stuff that I have that's going to run out quickly. So I have no water, which means I basically, all that food that I think I have, I don't actually have. And then as far as my fire game for boiling that water or heating up the rice and beans, I got nothing. I've almost got a big goose egg, even though I've got a spreadsheet of everything I've spent and everything I have, because I realize this is an endless game, and instead of looking through the crevices in the closet, I can see what I have on a spreadsheet. But I've probably spent over $1,000, and I've got several different things in several different categories, but I've got almost a goose egg.
Yeah, but what you do have now is some of the knowledge to go rectify it. And what's cool is all of these things are actually the easiest place to start, which is why we start there. They're actually pretty easy to rectify right now while everything's going good. So just,
But that's the need for knowledge and help for somebody
Absolutely.
in my camp.
Yeah, so we've covered those. You're 100% right, which is why Isaiah and I are doing what we're doing. We're trying, and we're going to have you back on because we need to do a two-parter. So we're going to have to do this again at some point. But because we do want to go over things like personal defense, making sure your house is covered. You've got 4 walls and a roof, and what to do if something happens. No different than what we just had.
You're going to bug in, bug out.
You're going to bug in, bug out. Do you have to evacuation routes? But you right now have some actionable steps you can take over this next week or two.
Easy ones, thankfully.
Very easy ones, and actually reasonably inexpensive ones.
You're
Relatively.
like, what, $25?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we talk about all of those things, you're spending $100. All of this, right? Between fire starters and making sure you've got a small, even like I said, just a small single camp stove. That with propane doesn't go bad. You can store propane indefinitely, and it just the stink part of it goes bad. But propane stores indefinitely. So if you buy those little camping ones with a little Coleman camp stove, all of a sudden you now have if your regular stove isn't working, you can cook and boil water. You've got water. You've got some food. Next thing we want to go over to is medical. Make sure that which is going to include hygiene. Okay, medical and hygiene are included. So why don't we end it there? We're at an hour right now.
Hey, just as a preparation for that one, if you
Yes.
guys have me back, That will be an interesting one. I'm type 1 diabetic, so I've actually, before my preparedness journey, I have a little mini fridge in my garage stored with insulin because I am insulin dependent.
Okay, so one of my best hunting
you got to know
buddies-
your situation for your personal health journey.
Mhm. Fully insulin dependent as well. I'm not, and Isaiah, but you are. So all of a sudden, you just changed the dynamic of the conversation because you actually have a more acute issue than water. Although everybody has the acute issue of water, you have we'll just say a branching out of one, which is insulin.
And that insulin needs to stay refrigerated.
Right.
So
Right. And I know they have different types of, and we need to get into that too because I carry lots of stuff in all of my gear catered toward my buddy Wayne, who's insulin dependent. And we've actually had to hike out of the woods because we broke down in the middle of nowhere. And so I keep, like sugar tablets, and I keep an array of different things. He keeps insulin at my house as well. The long release insulin or something like that at our house as well, so that if he's forced away
Smart
from his
idea.
home, we keep it in our refrigerator for him, and he cycles it through every once in a while. So there's never a time. And then so that's another thing to consider as well, for sure. That is acute for you, but for the rest of us isn't necessarily a big deal.
Yeah.
So. Go check out Blackbeard Fire Starters. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions that like this brought some ideas to you that you want us to discuss with Brett, or because my sister-in-law said this because she's in your boat. She's just learning too. And she's like, I don't know what I don't know. Like, how do I even know what to ask? I don't know what I don't know. And so if this helped at all, you form any questions or got your curiosity piqued, or while we're talking, you want to be part of the conversation. You're like, yeah, but what about this? Email us.
Yeah, email us. Leave a comment on our Facebook page.
Yeah, Isaiah takes care of all of
Instagram.
our Facebook page. It's a Facebook group, right?
No, it's an actual page. So
Facebook page.
It's a Facebook page. It's reasonably prepared. Just go ahead and like it and follow. And we release a lot of information on that page. And
I love that name.
Yeah.
Reasonably prepared.
I love it.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to like it because it's it's not like I don't know.
It's practical and realistic for people
for sure.
like me,
Yeah. But please ask questions. If you have anything that you have questions on, just ask in the group.
Mm-hmm.
Leave a comment on the YouTube.
On YouTube, leave comments below. Okay, so this will be on YouTube and this will be on all the podcast directories. Leave comments asking. You can email us at reasonablyprepared@gmail.com. We also have a Patreon, so if you want to become a Patreon supporter, you like what we do, and you want, we're going to be putting behind the scenes footage and all kinds of other stuff on Patreon. Patreon members are also going to get the video versions of the podcast released to them before.
Right, one day early, right?
No, it's Tuesday, Wednesday. They're 3 days early.
3 days early.
It's 3 days early.
Nice.
So we're so you can listen to the podcast, but if you want to see the podcast, 3 days early, it's going to go up on Patreon. And so it's a $3 tier, $3 a month, and you can support the channel and support all the content that we make because this costs a lot of money. We're trying to do the best we can for people. So everyone be blessed. We're going to have Brett back on here very, very soon to continue this conversation because it's a bigger conversation than we can fit inside of an hour podcast.
I'm going to take those steps, by the way, so I'm going to come back here and I'm not going to be naked anymore.
And once you take them, then hopefully we'll have, what is the next one? What is the next one? And that's how we progress.
Yeah.
And we start there. So if you're just starting your preparedness journey, thank you for tuning in. Thank you. I keep saying tuning in. This is not radio. Thank you for listening.
Just go with it.
Thank you for being awesome. We hope we help, and we hope we can serve in any way. And
thank you, Brett, for coming on.
Dude,
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
me.
We're going to go make some video content and do some shooting today.
Yeah,
Which
and
will
I
be
got
fun.
some work to do with the water.
Yes, do it. All right, so just because you're prepared does not mean you're
Paranoid.
awesome. Be blessed. Have a great day, everybody.